It's official. The bird flu has made the jump to humans. We have just been told that a man who was 59 years old who lived in Mexico has died from the bird flu or with the bird flu. The man was essentially homebound. He hadn't left his house for a couple of weeks. He had been previous health conditions that kept him home. The question then begins, where did this man catch this, right? If he hadn't left the house, does it have a long incubation period? Is it, somebody was already sick and brought it into the house to him? Did an animal step in feces, bird droppings or something and bring it to him, right? Now the WHO is not giving a lot of details or anything like that, but one thing I want you to understand, this man died back in April and they have just now officially said that this is what happened to him. Now we all know it's election year, right? And a lot of people are saying, here we go, election pandemic, right? Election flu. We've been hearing this for a while. A lot of people are afraid they're going to lock us down, do mail-in votings. You understand what I'm saying? We're going back to a new pandemic. Now I don't want you to panic right now or anything like that, but you got to understand this man died back in April. If he died in April, more than likely that stuff is already spreading, right? It's already spreading. Who remembers back in the first pandemic, right? By the time they started talking about it, it was already spreading everywhere, right? Once they realized what was going on, it was international, right? It was international. By then, it was too late to take steps to close stuff down, right? It was too late because it was already spreading. Whether you believe in the first pandemic or not, if you understand what I'm trying to say here. Like I told you a couple weeks ago, if you watch my videos, you saw that I didn't feel good for almost a week or two. A lot of people in my family didn't feel good for a week or two. Now I'm talking about family that I hadn't been around for weeks, right? And then when we all finally got back together, we all started realizing, hey, we've all been feeling pretty bad and we all had the same symptoms. Well, my mother went to the doctor with it. If you watch my videos, I discussed this. The doctor told her, oh, this is just some new kind of allergy. Here, take you 2 different types of antihistamines, right? And I told my mother, I'm like, more than likely, it was probably that we've caught what they're calling the bird flu, right? Because once the news, the WHO, all these people pick up on it and they start telling you, hey, it's took this person's infected, it's probably already spread everywhere. Common sense, right? Common sense tells you something happened to make them start picking this stuff up, right? That, hey, something's going on here. But guys, election pandemic, election flu, whatever you want to call it, could it happen this year? Yes, it could. Should you be concerned right now? Because the bird flu supposedly has a much, much greater death rate than our previous pandemic we had. And we've all been told there's another one coming, right? And I told you with the first pandemic, the reason a lot of people wasn't afraid of it or anything like that, or more people didn't take it seriously, I should say, is because it wasn't killing enough people. Now, this new bird flu has a much higher death rate according to what they've told us, right? You already know if they're picking up cases, it's pretty much already spread everywhere, right? It's spreading. Well, there's not much you can do about it. You know common sense stuff, how to take care of stuff like that. Wash your hands, stuff like that. You don't need a grown person to tell you how to avoid just your normal cold and flu precautions, right? I mean, now if this stuff starts spreading and a lot of people do start dying, the problem's going to be the first pandemic. That's going to be the problem. You're going to have people saying, well, the first one wasn't that bad. This one's not going to be that bad. They've already got companies in the process of making vaccines for this, right? So they knew it was coming. Now, that makes you beg the question, well, if they knew it was coming for this specific strain, I should say, how do they know that? Are they inventing this stuff? Is it naturally occurring, naturally evolving, right, in nature? And they're just that smart that they're picking up on it? Is it being released? We already know that certain things get weaponized, right? Certain diseases get weaponized, and you have these little areas that they work on this stuff, and sometimes accidents happen, right? Or sometimes accidents happen and it gets released. It's very strange to me that the man that died was in Mexico in April. You got to stop back and think what was going on during that time. You know, we had this big border deal. A couple of weeks before that, it was big news. You know that they were going to close the border. All the states were making a stand. They were sending their National Guard. They were sending their police. You know, whatever they could send down there to help Texas close the border. Now, where do we go from here with the bird flu? You're essentially in, like I always tell you, a set back and watch. You have to react to it, right? Because I'm telling you, if they're picking the cases up now, more than likely it's already spread. Just think back to the first pandemic, right? We just said this. By the time they realized what was going on, it was too late, right? It had already spread everywhere. Spread everywhere. Now, you also got to stop and think, well, Biden made his border policy just a few days ago, right? That they're going to allow, 2,500 a day in, which we've discussed is a small city, or a small town, we should say. And now, 2 days later, the WHO announces, hey, we've got our first victim here in Mexico, which the guy did die back in April, and they're just now telling us. It's crazy to sit here and think this is going on again this close to coming up on the election cycle, right? Who remembers 2020? I mean, we talk about this all the time, right? By the time that stuff had started spreading and they told us, it had already jumped all borders. I mean, we live in a society now with international travel, right? Where, you ever seen the movie Contagion? I mean, perfect movie of how something like this spreads, right? Somebody catches something over there, they get on a plane, and bam, 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 it's everywhere, right? Everybody starts catching it. It's just strange to me of the timing of all this, of how now that we're starting to hear more headlines on it, and people starting to die, and we're coming up into election season. Are they going to lock us down? I've told you, I don't believe they're going to lock us down again. I don't think they will, because I think they realize people's not going to put up with that again. Now, would more people listen if this comes out and it has a massive death rate? I'm talking much more than the first pandemic. I think more people would take more precautions if it had a higher death rate, but you would still have some that would say, well, this isn't what's going on, until it affected them or their immediate family or something like that. But we're at the point now where every election cycle, some drastic thing is going on, right? Mail-in voting. Why do they need mail-in voting? Well, we all know why, right? Votes can come in and all of a sudden it can turn an election, correct? You may go to bed with your candidate just winning, right? Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of votes ahead, right? When you wake up the next day, well, mail-in voting, come in and we need to count it. Things like that have been known to happen. Votes just show up, right? Because they were mail-in votes. They wasn't counted. That could be what we're going to see here. I don't know. I firmly believe they're not going to lock us down, but it does help put them push for mail-in voting, because elderly people, some of them prefer to mail-in vote. They don't prefer to be around a lot of people, right? They prefer to write their vote down and mail it in. I've told you the story on this in 2020 that my cousin had died, which he was in his 90s. He had died in January, and when we was at the funeral home, everybody was coughing, everybody felt bad, everybody was kind of sickly. This is before the pandemic had been announced. Everybody was just feeling bad. I mean, you're talking at a funeral home, everybody was feeling bad. Well, then what happened a couple weeks after that, they announced that we had the pandemic going on, that this thing had jumped. Same thing now. You got a lot of people that's sick with some type of flu symptoms in the summertime, or late spring, early summertime, but yet the doctors are calling it some kind of allergy. That's what they were saying back during the pandemic. Our local doctors were we haven't never seen, we got a lot of people sick. We don't know what it is. We're just treating it as allergy. I told you that this is how this stuff goes, and then a couple weeks, months later, you find out this virus had started way before they ever knew it or had announced it to us that it had started. Now, my cousin that died in January, that summer, his son, my other cousin, received a letter, a big pamphlet in the mail to do your mail-in voting. Because you got to understand, the man who died was in his 90s, right? They sent him a pamphlet to do mail-in voting. And my cousin looked at me and he said, you realize I could fill this out and send it in, right? Now, they had already knew he died because they had cut off his Social Security, his Medicare, the death certificates had been turned in and everything, but this voter thing had still come in the mail. Now, how many people do you think that happens to in America, right? You've heard of dead people voting, quote, dead people voting. That's how some of that happens. You know, somebody gets a packet like that, and instead of just throwing it away like my cousin did, or tearing it up, burning it, they actually fill it out and send it in. Now, a lot of people are going to say, no, they don't. You can't do that. We don't have voter ID here. I mean, you can fill stuff like that out and send it in. How much you think that happens in the United States? It probably happens a lot. I don't know. I'm not a professional in that realm, but I seen it with my own eyes that you could have filled it out and sent it in. And now with the pandemic starting again, could it start again, I should say? It makes you scratch your head, doesn't it? Like, why all of a sudden now has it made the jump and spreading? They've been warning us that a bigger, badder one was coming. You've had Bill Gates tell us. You've had all type of people telling us Moderna stock is doubling. Okay, the previous pandemics wound down, right? Why is their stock doubling? Well, it's because they're producing this vaccine for the bird flu. It's wild. It's wild. If you dig deep enough, you probably could find something on it. But guys, let me know your thoughts on this. Do you think that the bird flu, 1, is real? Do you think, 2, that it's going to start spreading? And 3, do you think they're going to use this to lock us down? Comment on this video. Hit the thumbs up or the thumbs down on it. We need some interaction with you. Share this video. Subscribe if you haven't. Keep your head on a swivel. Be aware of your surroundings at all times. Protect yourself and your family at all times. At that moment, you're the only person who can do it. Stay safe. Keep prepping. And we're going to attach an article about the man's death in Mexico. And you decide for yourself what you think's going on. Stay safe. Keep prepping.